Yep, we're gonna hop back on the bike here.
I always do that.
Let's get off and running.
I'm a night rider. Every time that I go up past midnight, I swear I get higher. Swear I gotta get higher now. I'm a night rider.
Okay.
Every time that I give what I got, I supply that fire. I supply that fire, man. I'm a night rider. Every time that I go up
This
past
is
midnight, I swear I get higher.
Bookmarks with Bump.
Swear I gotta get higher now.
We're back once again to talk about whatever the heck I feel like talking about. We go through my Twitter bookmarks, whatever I deem interesting at the time and don't have the time to read, and I come on this microphone and I read it with you and go over it. This is a podcast all about nothing, much like Seinfeld is a show all about nothing. And in this show about nothing, we got a few things to recap here. Now, it's been a couple weeks since I last spoke on the microphone. If you heard last week's episode, that was banked and stored away. I had a busy couple weeks. And I'm just trying to sit down here and try to navigate through this conversation that we're about to have. I had a very long day today. I had a seminar for Wintress, and no, that is not Winter's sister. That is a company that designs equipment to keep presses safe. I work in a press room. I'm a tool and die setter. And basically we have to set these parameters for protection to keep our equipment safe, which when our equipment fails, it can be very costly. So there's a big thing about avoiding costs. And it's just so interesting to sit down and see somebody have the ability to speak for an endless amount of time is what it seems when you're sitting there in the moment. I'm a very active guy. I don't like to sit around. I wouldn't do well at an office job. I guarantee that. I need to move and see some production throughout the day. So, sitting down is a big energy sucker for me. They promised us breakfast and lunch, and they did. They did bring us breakfast and lunch, but much like we talked about in the past, when you have carbohydrates and do nothing but sit afterwards, it's easy to have your energy sucked. It's easy to lose your juice, if you will. So I'm trying to juice myself back up here, get energy any way I can. All in all, the seminar went good. I got paid to not go to work, which is a added benefit of being an apprentice and learning things in the trade. So we'll chalk it up as a nice day off in the middle of the week. I had to get some fresh air, take a nice walk outside. I am off from running today, but I am back to running hard. Picking up the mileage, running about 20 miles a week is where I'm going to be at here. 3 days running 4 miles, 1 day 5 miles, the other days 2 days 2 miles, or 3 miles, sorry. I'm running a lot of miles. That's basically what it is. I just go out there and just try to get a nice solid run underneath a recovery pace, around 8:30 a mile right now before I start picking up training again. I'll be doing a little 5K. I'll be doing a little 5K in a couple weeks here in the beginning of September. My sister asked me to do a color run with her, and that's something I've never done before, is a color run. I'm not too excited to ruin a pair of clothes, perhaps, but I am excited to be doing something with my sister like this. This is pretty cool. So I couldn't say no to the opportunity. Get a little race pace run in before I start training again in the beginning of October for a 10K coming up in November. And yeah, I'm pushing to a little bit more mileage here because I want to push myself. I need to push myself. I left you off with the conversation of the Torrington Road Race and my goal heading into that race to run in about 37 minutes. The race was a great race. We'll start off with just getting there. The weather was beautiful. Typically, that race is very hot and humid. Last year, when I ran in it, it was probably 93 degrees with a very high humidity index. And then the year before that, it was also in the 90s. It's typically very hot that Sunday in August. Who would have knew? It's the dead heat of the summer. So it was about 76 degrees at the beginning of the race with like 18% humidity. It was a beautiful day. and the sun was shining, the clouds were out, and I got off to a really hot start. I looked down at my watch around 3/4 of a mile in just to kind of see where I was pacing at, and I saw 6:27 as my pace for the first mile. And I was kind of flustered and blown away because I hadn't really ran that fast during a training session yet this year, and it wasn't really, honestly, I knew in that moment that I was running too fast. And it just felt so good, you know? I came out feeling very fluidly. And going into the beginning of that race, you got to run up a big hill. It's not necessarily that steep, but it is long. It's about a 1/4 mile long going up Water Street there. And I was fine going up the hill. I run hills all the time. But after that, I kind of noticed myself fatiguing. And my mileage time dropped down considerably after that, which is something that I'm going to focus on heading into this next training regiment. You know, in thinking about it, I wasn't too upset about it in the moment. I had a ton of support there. My little brother came to the race, and so did my girlfriend, and her mother actually showed up. And mid-race, right after going over this steep hill on Field Street, they were at the bottom of the hill with signs for me, cheering me on. And that was right before you finished your 4th mile. And that was a real boost for me to be able to finish that race in under 40 minutes still. You know, I finished, I found the kick and the drive to sprint through the last 1/4 mile or so. And I finished in 39 minutes and 15 seconds. And I came in 4th in my age group, 19th in the males, and 23rd or 22nd overall, which, you know, I'm not too displeased about because I kind of knew going into it I don't know what kind of race shape I'm in. It had been a whole year since I last raced. And to be honest with you, my diet hasn't been that great. You know, I'm really, quote unquote, enjoying myself. Just really finding balance in life is a very difficult thing to do when you're juggling so many things at once. And honestly, those are excuses. And I spent some time afterwards kind of letting myself know that these are excuses. And by telling myself that and being real with myself, it's kind of got me a goal moving forward, which is why the training won't let up. And why I need to be more serious and strict with myself, and why it's important to take accountability. I knew my mistakes heading into this race, and I was just kind of hoping that they wouldn't affect anything, right? You could hope all you want, but work matters more. You got to put work into anything that you're hoping for, and you earn what you deserve, something I spoke about weeks and weeks and weeks ago. And that's what it is. You know, I look up a new training schedule now, and I'm going to keep myself very strict to the instructions throughout that. I have tempo runs that'll be coming up, different types of striding, things that I've never done before training for a race. I usually just stick to mileage. I do a little bit of speed work, but I don't focus on endurance style speed work, which is honestly what I need to do if I'm going to run in endurance races and try to succeed on this goal of qualifying for a Boston Marathon in my lifetime here. So it's important to just kind of have those talks with yourself and understand what you need and tell yourself you can do it instead of making the excuses as to why you can't. People juggle a lot of things. Everybody who has a goal in life has to juggle things and make sacrifices, and sometimes you just have to sacrifice those extra snacks. Sometimes you have to have that conversation with yourself when you wake up in the middle of the night, and I know it's hard to do. I know it's hard to do because it's something that I can't do sometimes. But here I am. I'm confessing my sins and putting it out into the airwaves, so I guess the only thing I can really do moving forward is repent, right? And correct my mistakes. And that's what I plan on doing here. So all in all, the race was a failure and a success all at once. It was so great, though, and I can't let being hard on myself take away from the victories of the day. That's what the real balance is in life. Like, you're going to be your biggest critic and your biggest hype man sometimes. And you just have to be able to balance that. Yes, I didn't hit my goal, but I had a lot of things to be grateful for about the event. Just the support I had there meant so much to me. I felt so loved. And that is what made the day so much better. And in the moment, like, I wasn't upset about failing at my goal because I had so much to be grateful for. So, like I said, the weather was a little bit chillier, and it's been kind of consistent with that chilliness since then, which makes me feel like summer is coming to an end. And maybe I've been down on myself about that. Maybe it's not just the race, you know? Maybe the weather is changing, and it's really getting me in my feels a little bit because I'm not ready to say goodbye to summer. I don't know if I ever really will be. Summer always seems like 3 months later I'm thinking about summer and, oh, I miss it so much, and I wish I didn't do this, and I wish I didn't do that. It's really like summer is like a failed relationship sometimes. And however, you got to be grateful for what you have. And with summer coming to a close, right now we are heading into a very, very important, distracting time. Football season is beginning. Right now, as we speak, ESPN is gearing up in Dublin, Ireland to kick off college football. Week 0 begins this week for college football in Dublin, Ireland. Florida State will be taking on Georgia State in a heated battle, we can only assume. I mean, this is going to be awesome to see these two teams out there in another country getting another. So, a little insight here: when you watch sports overseas, and this is not a serious knock on. I'm sorry, Florida State is playing Georgia Tech. I apologize. Florida State ranked 10 currently in the preseason polls, which indicates to me this first game of the season is going to be a banger. So, as I was saying, these crowds overseas, when you watch other sports, they are absolutely out of their minds. When you're watching the UFC, they sing along. They sing along to all the entrance music. They are really going to be fired up to watch American football. I can guarantee you that. I can guarantee you that it will be a great game. So college football season kicking off. The NFL preseason concludes this week. Training camps are coming to a conclusion. My New England Patriots, I mean, I don't know. It seems like there's some promise here. The play from Drake May last week really got my hopes up. He seemed to have calmed down in the pocket a little bit. The way he was sliding around made me feel really comfortable about the way he's playing, and if he's going to be the quarterback starting this season, maybe I'm not too bent out of shape about it. I have good faith in the Patriots at this time. I have realistic expectations. I mean, they're not going to win the Super Bowl this year. Or could they? We'll have to see about that. So far in the preseason, they won one game and dropped their second against the Eagles in a last-minute revelation from them coming back in the fourth quarter, scoring 11 points to take the lead and ultimately win. But Drake May had a good game, and also we saw some glimmers of hope from our receiving core. I completely forgot that we picked up JaMychal Hasty, who is a very sneaky weapon in the NFL. He did a lot of things for the Jaguars, and they just kind of got overwhelmed with talent there. He was a great special teams player, returning the ball. He's quick. He can make receptions, and so I see a lot of the lion's share of that running back core getting split up a little bit more, kind of almost becoming predictable. You can see Ramondre Stevenson just pounding the ball and having people like Kevin Harris, Antonio Gibson, and JaMychal Hasty coming out of the backfield. You could really toss on those checkdowns, which Drake May seemed pretty comfortable doing. I have a newfound looking into the season. I know I sounded a little bit pessimistic before, and I always fall back on the guise of this is reality. You have to face your reality and understand what it is. And it's also just the preseason, and people say that the preseason's not important. Well, the preseason is a precursor to the regular season. It could show you a lot of things that you need to know about the regular season. And if you're somebody like me who, is always into the odds and ends and a little bit of fantasy play, the preseason is important. Like, am I going to draft Ramondre Stevenson? I don't think I would. Um, there's going to be other options when it comes to receptions and who I'm going to just stay away from the Patriots. Probably stay away from the Steelers too. You just kind of have some question marks there as what the usage of players are going to be, what their availability is going to be, and how they're going to perform overall. These teams kind of seem to be in a period where they're developing new offenses. However, there are many, many experts on the internet when it comes to fantasy, and I found a couple of threads that I want to go over, just kind of give a fantasy football preview. I have a draft coming up in about a week here, and so this is going to be good information for me to get into. And I found a couple of profiles here. We're going to talk about Andrew Erickson, and we're also going to talk about 17 game pace Chris O'Brien, who has been featured on ESPN before and is a writer for Roto Underworld. So there's nothing really to it but to do it, and we'll jump right into the first thread. It begins with, I watched all 16 NFL preseason games this weekend, so you don't have to. Here's everything that matters for 2024 fantasy football. Jaden Daniels played 11 snaps and looked great. He went 2 for 3 passing for 45 yards, 1 rush for 3 yards, and a touchdown. That rushing upside, along with his underrated passing ability, makes him a steal in fantasy drafts. He will break out in 2024. I agree with that. I think he's a player who could kind of mimic a little bit of Lamar Jackson, get around and move around out there. And you look at last year's top quarterbacks in the league when it comes to fantasy and PPR leagues were Josh Allen and Jalen Hurts. And that was probably due to their 15 rushing touchdowns, which I think Jaden Daniels has he has a good handful or more of touchdowns in his bag this season. We'll go on to see Caleb Williams played 17 snaps and looked like the real deal. 4 for 7 passing, 95 yards. 1 rush for 13 yards. He has the weapons to make an immediate impact in fantasy. He threw on the run with accuracy, velocity, and had zip. Now, Caleb Williams is kind of really impressed me. I have to double back on things that I may have said about him in the past, but his play on the field has really been extraordinary. He is a magician out there, shades of a young Russell Wilson, the way he was playing in the preseason. Now, granted, this is the preseason. I don't really see any decline coming from him this year, though. He's got fresh feet. He's moving around well. He moves around in the pocket and creates his own pocket, and he makes crazy throws. He's got incredible arm talent. When he's throwing the ball, he reminds me of Aaron Rodgers and Matt Stafford, the way he can throw awkwardly in different positions and kind of just get the ball exactly where it needs to be. He puts it in the basket. Now, is he going to be able to do that every time? The one question with Caleb Williams is his accuracy. I mean, he throws a considerable amount of incompletions. I believe he went 4 for 7 in the first game, and I think it was like 6 for 13 in the second. But they're giving him a lot of looks. They're giving him a lot of practice, and the more he develops, the longer he goes on. If he stays healthy and stays this talented, there's no way that he's not going to be a star in the league. This could be like the breath of fresh air that the Bears needed. They've really loaded up on their defense the past 5 years and created a culture under Matt Eberflus where they kind of hit hard and never had an offense to back it up. They were always really in games, but never really in games. And this could be the difference maker. They loaded up their receiving core. They have so much talent with Keenan Allen and DJ Moore. I mean, it's just going to be very interesting to see how they get along in a tough division. Tank Dell didn't play in 2 wide receiver sets for the Texans, but the Texans ran 3 wide receiver sets on 67% of plays with the starters. Dell was the only starting wide receiver to see a target, and he scored. He will be great for fantasy. I agree. He will be great for fantasy. He was a star last year. I mean, and he's got so much breakaway speed that if he gets out ahead of the defender, C.J. Stroud has the ability to put the ball exactly where it needs to be. The Texans is another team that looks so promising, and they looked so promising last year. They are coming to Gillette the same week my girlfriend and I are going up to Boston, and I'm going to try and see if we could extend our stay so I could watch the Texans take on the Patriots at home in October. That would be a great, fun game to watch. And if I do happen to draft Tank Dell, which could be risky with Stephon Diggs being added to the Texans, but I mean, who's going to get open? I think that's who CJ Stroud is always going to throw it to. Anyway, that would be a great game to watch. I would love to see those two teams compete. The thread continues. Brock Bowers played 79% of snaps and lined up everywhere. He lined up 6 times as a tight end, 2 times as an outside receiver, 1 time as a slot receiver, and 2 times in the backfield. He caught 2 passes for 25 yards. I mean, they want to move him all over like Travis Kelce, and I think that he is a player who kind of fits that mold. Travis Kelce is a really hybrid style of tight end, and just to see Brock Bowers coming into the league and, his size and his ability throughout his years in Georgia was on display so much that all people could talk about was what his career would be like once he makes it to the NFL. And here he is. Let's see what he does. I think that's a good rookie that if you want to take in a later round as a backup tight end and stash him on the bench, that's a brilliant idea. The thread goes on to say Zamir White played 79% of snaps to Alexander Madison's 21%. White had 6 carries and a TD. Madison had 3 carries. White also ran 6 routes to Madison's 3. This is Zamir White's backfield. And it is, and I think that was kind of the move when the Raiders moved on from Josh Jacobs initially. Like last year, there were a lot of signs of Zamir White's ability. But how much of that is like a Tony Pollard effect where it was due to how feared Josh Jacobs was, and you don't really expect the run coming when he's not on the field? If the Raiders' identity wants to remain the same with pounding it the way they do, hey, let's see what Zamir White can do. I mean, Alexander Madison to me was always a backup running back, and I don't know what the Raiders are going to be. I don't know if you even want to draft Devontae Adams this year. The thread goes on with Brian Thomas and Gabe Davis started in 2 wide receiver sets for the Jags. Christian Kirk was the odd man out. BTJ made a nice catch down the sideline for 41 yards. J.J. McCarthy made some impressive throws after a rough start. Oh, this is tough. He ended 11 for 17, 188, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Darnold also looked solid. Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison should be just fine as this offense will be consolidated. That'll be interesting to watch this development this year because this was about J.J. McCarthy, and he is out for the season. He tore his meniscus in the second preseason game, and he looked like he was trending towards starting. More of these rookie quarterbacks are starting. Bo Nix was named the starter this week, and it's kind of interesting. I didn't really notice how much talent there was in this year's quarterback draft class, but it's immense. There's a lot of talent, and it's going to be fun to watch a lot of these teams. We'll circle back to the Steelers. Najee Harris and Jaylen Warren split snaps almost exactly 50-50. Najee had 53%, 3 routes and 1 target. Warren had 47, 3 routes and 0 targets, 3 carries each. Exactly what we expected. Chris O'Brien says that they should both be good value in a run-heavy offense. And this is what I was talking about with the question marks around the Steelers. Yeah, they'll probably be a run-heavy offense, but how is that offensive line going to perform? O'Brien goes on to tweet, Khalil Herbert outsnapped DeAndre Swift 14-2, indicating that there may be a committee in Chicago. Both very talented running backs, something to monitor moving forward. Jets rookie running back Braylon Allen took 100% of the snaps with the starters and played well. He went on to have 9 carries for 54 yards, and if anything were to happen to Brees, Allen would be a league winner. This guy is huge, and you should stash him if you have a big bench because 9 yards per carry is a very good clip, and I mean, we'll see if he can receive the ball. That'll help out in your PPR leagues. Tyrone Tracy is the clear number 2 for the Giants, playing 85% of the snaps with the starters. He averaged 5.2 yards per carry on his 5 carries, a high upside handcuff. Adonai Mitchell played 71% of the snaps with the starters, lining up both in the slot and on the outside. Josh Downs' injury to the Colts could open up a massive opportunity for Mitchell. He's a freak athlete that should mesh well downfield with AR's rocket arm, as well as Michael Pittman being the more physical receiver. I think this is a good pairing out there in Indianapolis. We'll see what their team has to offer. Last week, or this week rather, when training camp was ending up, they had split practices with the Bengals, and there was some trash talk coming out that the Colts weren't enough of a challenge, and it's like playing JV after playing with Joe Burrow. So we'll see if those Bengals could get back to Super Bowl contention. Javonte Williams played 75% of the snaps, while Samaje Perine saw 25%. Williams saw 5 touches and looks to be the guy in Denver, as he should be. Remember, this is a guy with elite tackle-breaking ability. We anticipated the production dip last year due to the injury timeline. James Cook played 100% of the snaps with the Bills starters. Their wide receiver snap counts were Keon Coleman, 100%, Khalil Shakur, 56%, Curtis Samuel, 44%, and MVS, 44%. It looks like Shakur and Samuel are splitting snaps early on, and all the Bills' wide receivers are worth a shot with how late they're going. And that's true. That could be good to have on your bench. Josh Allen just tends to throw up touchdowns whenever he wants to. I mean, Khalil Shakur being probably the most familiar face, he's going to be the go-to guy there. He liked Keon Coleman and asked for him coming out of the draft, but it's going to take time for the rookie to develop. Marquise Brown dislocated his collarbone. It's a 4-week recovery just about. It could open up a window for Xavier Worthy to assert himself as a starter. Rashee Rice will ultimately be a great value if no suspension is issued. What's up with that? How has there been no answers on this? This guy's been getting in trouble all offseason, and still he's here. Just working. And props to him for working. I mean, you can't stop a working man from working. The Packers wide receiver rotation was on full display. Of the 3 snaps the starters play, Dobbs played all 3. Watson played 2. Reed played 2, and Datavion Wicks played 1. This may just be a headache all season. I like taking shots on all these guys in drafts. I don't. So this expert, I mean, when you're drafting wide receivers, you want to get a guy who you know the quarterback has that relationship with where he's going to give him the ball. You need a workhorse. You need workhorses, and you need receptions. And yeah, touchdowns are great too, but if you got the guy on the team who's getting 10 to 12 receptions a game just to help move the chains, that's going to be where you want to be. You need the points. This is all about gaining points, and if these guys are splitting touches all the time, then what type of advice is that? You need to go with the go-to guy. The Titans look to be going with a 2-man backfield, with Pollard and Spears almost splitting snaps. Pollard had 8 snaps and 6 touches, and Spears had 6 snaps and 4 touches. Pollard did more with 46 yards, just a little bit more than Tajay Spears' 4 yards. Is that enough information to help build the championship team? I don't know. But Chris O'Brien has another thread. He researched the most rostered players on championship teams, which I didn't do. All I did was research the players that were leading the league last year. That's how I knew to pull Jalen Hurts and Josh Allen out of my rump. Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, CeeDee Lamb being the biggest wide receiver. Contract talks looking good for the Cowboys, but we'll see what happens there. Christian McCaffrey was number 3 on that list, the number 1 running back, Tyreek Hill being second. I think Tyreek Hill is not going to stop trying to chase that 2,000-yard record, and I think Tua wants to help him get that. So there might be games this year where Tyreek has 20 receptions, just slants across the middle. And that's what you want to look for. You want to look for the tough receivers that are going to take the hits. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Puka Nacua, A.J. Brown, and Devontae. So that's another field. The A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith problem. Which one of those guys do you pick? But let's see what Chris O'Brien has for us here. The thread begins, I researched the most rostered players on championship teams. Here's everything I found to help you win in 2024 fantasy football. I looked at the 10 most rostered players on championship teams from 2019 to 2023. Here's the ADP breakdown. Rounds 1 through 2, 32%. Rounds 3 through 5, 20%. Rounds 6 through 9, 8%. Rounds 10 plus, 4%. Undrafted, 36%. Top waiver pickups are the highest contributors to fantasy championships. Let's break each group down further. Rounds 1 through 2, 38% wide receivers, 50% running backs, 6% tight ends, and 6% quarterbacks. You must hit on a QB1 or tight end 1 if you want to go that route in these rounds. Elite running backs are most likely to carry you all the way. The hero running back draft strategy just became a lot more interesting. Rounds 3 through 5, 20% wide receiver, 30% running back, 30% tight end, 20% quarterback. Pretty even distribution. Look for players that could jump up to that elite tier. Nico Collins, Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud, Trey McBride, Dalton Kincaid, Mark Andrews, Devon Achane, Isaiah Pacheco. George Pickens has potential this year, and so does Tank Dell. Rounds 6 through 9, wide receiver 75%, quarterback 25%. 2020 was Stephon Diggs, 2021 Jamar Chase and Deebo Samuel, 2022 Jalen Hurts. We're looking for high upside rookie or a young wide receiver that can change a team. Avoid the running back dead zone. Brian Thomas Jr., Calvin Ridley, Rashee Rice, Christian Watson, Xavier Worthy, and Ladd McConkey are all examples of young or breakout players that can kind of make a push and be there throughout your championship run. Rounds 10 plus, 50% quarterbacks, and 50% tight ends. In 2019, it was Lamar Jackson. In 2023, it was Sam Laporta. Some of these guys are going a bit earlier, but the prototypes we're looking for is a rushing breakout quarterback and a tight end scoring touchdowns. Jaden Daniels and Jake Ferguson are great examples of players like that. The undrafted and waiver wire. Now, this breakdown is great because it's really what it is. The wide receivers, 28%, running backs, 28%, tight ends, 17%, quarterbacks, 11%. Kickers and defenses are 17%. The archetypes you're looking for are rookie wide receivers that are making an impact, running backs that are backups coming out at the right time, tight ends with a late breakout, and quarterbacks with a career revival or they're rookies. Let's see what Trevor Lawrence can do this year. Let's see what Caleb Williams can do this year. Pat Freiermuth, Keon Coleman, Adonai Mitchell are all up for great example. Pat Freiermuth is a player that I've used as a waiver wizard before in great games and great situations. You just kind of have an idea when he's going to break out, what those matchups are, those AFC North teams that hone in and send a lot of focus towards the wide receivers. So they get tough when they play the Steelers and they let them do whatever they want to do outside and slip across the middle, and boom, you got Pat Freiermuth going on the seam route for 45 yards and a touchdown. Who else? A couple of other players are listed there, but we'll move on to the next thread. This one's by Andrew Erickson, and he's got 6 wide receivers that we must draft. Brian Thomas Jr. for the Jacksonville Jaguars. They drafted him 23rd overall in the first round, even with as much talent as they have at wide receiver. I am expecting big things from the LSU product with year 1 attached to Trevor Lawrence's big arm, with vacated targets available. So let's see what can happen. In 2023, Lawrence ranked 3rd in pass attempts of 20-plus air yards, 2nd in 20-plus air yard completions, and 1st in touchdowns of 20 or more air yards. There's a high-end splash week potential with Thomas and Jacksonville. Calvin Ridley and Zay Jones combined for nearly 200 targets last season. Considering Gabe Davis has never commanded 100 targets in a single game, Thomas is looking at close to at least 100-plus targets in the Jaguars' offense. That's a very encouraging benchmark for a Wookiee. That's a very encouraging benchmark for a rookie wide receiver, given every rookie in the last few years to hit that threshold has drastically exceeded expectations and finished at least top 4 in receiving yards among rookie wide receivers. I said Wookie again, damn it. I fully expected Thomas Jr. to take over the Ridley role, who was miscast as a field stretcher last season. That role was salivating for fantasy purposes. 1,800 plus air yards, 23% target share, 36% air yards shared, NFL leader in end zone targets, and wide receiver 10 expected points per game. Just in the first week of the preseason, Thomas was already seeing a full allotment of starter snaps. With Christian Kirk coming off the field in 12 personnel, Thomas's biggest competition for targets will often be Davis and tight ends. He likes those odds, and so do I. Even with Gabe Davis and Stephon Diggs in Buffalo, Stephon Diggs would command most of the targets. You can see Brian Thomas doing the same thing. He's super, super fast with blazing speed. He's really physical and can get off the line easily. And if he gets separation, Trevor Lawrence is just going to throw bomb after bomb after bomb. Now we go from Brian Thomas Jr. to the guy he's replacing, Calvin Ridley, the Tennessee Titans. Andrew Erickson goes on to say, when in doubt, draft players from the AFC South, the shootout division. Last year, he was 17th overall with wide receiver and 26th in points per game. Pretty solid stat line for a guy that hadn't played football in a long time. Ridley led the league with 24 end zone targets, but fell short of fully capitalizing, and this was a comeback season for him, so let's kind of see what he can do. DeAndre Hopkins is shelved with a knee injury that has forced him to miss almost all of the preseason and potentially regular season games. Ridley is an easy bet as a prime post-hype sleeper in 2024. It says here that Ridley has never finished worse than wide receiver 25 in a healthy season, so if he's happy with the way Will Levis is throwing him the ball, let's see what he can do with a new setting there. And we'll stay in the AFC South, of course, the next player being Tank Dell for the Houston Texans. I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't include at least one Texans wide receiver on the must-draft wide receiver list. He goes on to say, I've been lower on Nico Collins versus consensus as the undisputed number 1 most expensive Texans wide receiver, and more in line with expert consensus regarding Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell. Remember, as a rookie, Dell posted an identical yard share to Collins at 31%, while falling just short in target share at 21%. The undersized wide receiver posted over 1,000 yards in just 10 games played. In those games, Dell posted again a 21% target share, 33% air yard share, and 14.2 points per game. He was 9th in the league. In the 8 games that Collins and Dell played together, each missed a game with injury, the production was nearly identical. Dell also outgained Collins despite similar target shares in their last 4 games played together. I love the value of taking the rookie breakout later come 2024. Givey looks to be back on full health. And guys, come on. CJ Stroud absolutely loves Tank Dell. His guy. Sometimes it can really be that simple. CJ Stroud did go out and beg for the Texans to draft Tank Dell, so that'll be great to watch. It'll be great to watch him develop and come back from injury. He had a broken leg, I believe it was, last year at the end of the season, so he wasn't able to play, and CJ Stroud just continuously moved on and made an impact as one of the greatest rookie quarterbacks of all time. Let's see how he develops this year coming up. The next wide receiver on this list is Rashee Rice of the Kansas City Chiefs. He was very much ready for this tweet to age poorly, but given no news about a suspension and the newest injury to Marquise Brown, it's a no-brainer. Because of the suspension fear, Rashee Rice's price is supremely discounted across so many redraft platforms. But with no news about a penalty and a December 9th court date, he's under the impression that this is going to be a 2025 issue, so you buy the dip. Rice showcased promise in his rookie season with the Chiefs. 105 catches for 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns in 20 games, and a 19% target share. Despite an average of 10.9 fantasy points per game, he surged post-week 6, averaging 12.1 with a ranking inside the top 20. He also loves double-dipping on the Chiefs' offense with Xavier Worthy. Now, he goes from the AFC to Chris Godwin for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The full slot role is a go. Godwin has never finished worse than wide receiver 20 overall or in points per game through 4 seasons with a 65% snap rate from the slot. Godwin played his lowest snap rate, 37%, since 2018 during the 2023 season. He is expected back to be in the full-time slot under new offensive coordinator Liam Cohen. And he's great at getting across the middle. Chris Godwin is another one of those tough, gritty receivers that can make a big difference and makes a lot of catches throughout the course of a game. Malik Neighbors for the New York Giants. The Giants have no choice but to heavily feature Malik Neighbors so significantly given the sheer lack of playmakers they have elsewhere. And that's really where you have to leave it at with this. I mean, I could go on and on about what he's tweeting about Malik Neighbors, but that's what it is. Daniel Jones needs Malik Neighbors this year more than he needs air. There is nothing that they can do without trying to get the ball to Malik Neighbors in the end zone. And he's fast, he's quick, he's physical, he gets off the line. He's a great young wide receiver. He's shown a lot of promise and made a lot of good catches throughout training camp. He's a really talented receiver who makes a lot of fun catches to watch, and he kind of strikes me as a guy who's going to be like George Pickens. He's just going to explode his rookie season, which is coming up so soon, which, it's an unfortunate close that the summer is coming to an end, but hey, football is back, and the wait is over. The pain is gone. It's time to just embrace what fall is, and that's football season, man. And maybe it wasn't this hard this year. Maybe it just kind of hit you this week because we were distracted. We had a major distraction. We had the Olympics. And at the conclusion of the Olympics, as I forecasted in my last episode, we are the champions of the world. Are you happy, Noah Lyles? The USA basketball men's team won the gold medal. The women's team won the gold medal. Our track stars won gold medals and silver medals in such an abundance that we won the most medals. And we are the best athletes in the world. It is solidified here with this. We lead the board with 40 gold medals. We won 40 gold medals. Now, of course, we're tied with China, but we also blew out the next competitor in third place, Japan, who had 20. But when it comes to total medals, the United States had a commanding 35 medal victory. 126 medals were brought home to the United States this year in a just extremely victorious and beautiful conclusion to the Olympics. The United States proves their superiority. They are the United States of athletics from this point moving forward. We don't need to hear anything about what America is. But, it all capped off and culminated with that USA game against France. And the internet was abuzz with what was going on. And it was great to watch. It was fun to watch the conclusion of the game and just Steph Curry, who wasn't shooting well beginning in the tournament, to feel so comfortable. And he gets into that zone, man, that just makes him look like one of the most dedicated and just fearful players. Like this guy, he scares you when he's in his zone because there's nothing you could do. There's a picture of him shooting over Wemby that just makes you say, how can anybody get this guy to not make a basket? Steph Curry and what he's done since coming into the league and growing into the star that he's become is just, I think he's one of the greatest to ever do it. And that could be recency bias because I'm watching it happen right now. It could be just me wanting to be a contrarian because the conversation is always Jordan or LeBron. When I look up and on my wall I have posters of Kobe and Steph Curry because they are just difference makers. And they make a difference in the game. They don't just make a difference from what they do on the court, how they win games. They've made differences in how people decide to play the game and want to play the game. It's been incredible to watch Steph develop and now just kind of get his praise. One of these threads I have highlighted here are athletes reacting to Steph's legendary performance for gold. Terrence Mann went on. Terrence Mann was, and this is just a collection of tweets from people that were watching the game. Terrence Mann for the Clippers. Y'all see what we got to deal with guarding Steph? I mean, seriously. Paige Buchers was going sick. Nah, he's unreal. Karl Anthony Towns. This has to be one of the best shots I've ever seen. The degree of difficulty on this shot is off the charts, which is the shot that Steph Curry made while KD and LeBron were both wide open on the wing. He was being guarded by 3 players, and he still put it up and saw nothing but the net. Donovan Mitchell was going sick. Damian Lillard, Steph was crazy. DeMar DeRozan, Chef Curry, Trae Young, we're witnessing greatness. Wow. GOAT. Number 30. I agree. Jalen Brunson, Steph is ridiculous. This is true. Tyrese Maxey said he was cooking. Tracy Jackson, night. Manu Ginobili had an amazing amount of praise, which is awesome considering we beat his country. So this is great sportsmanship from Manu Ginobili. Steph is ridiculous. Indeed, unbelievable, truly. Congrats to the United States on getting gold again. Unreal game. France fought hard with way less weapons and had a strong chance if it wasn't for Steph's genius. Kudos. So much fun. I went back and watched the last 3 minutes again. Amazing shooting display at the highest stage possible, and at the highest level of degree, if I might add. And it goes on and on. I mean, Steph really made America proud that night, and the athletes of America made us proud. Coming home, world champions, the winner of the Olympics. I don't even know if they do that, but just for gloating's sake, let's say that they do that. And let's take a victory lap here a couple weeks after the closing ceremony, which Tom Cruise is just, on a mission to be the biggest badass in the world, which is why it's Mission Impossible, because a 5'7" guy cannot be the biggest badass in the world, especially if he's wearing lifts. And, but he can always try. And that's all we can do, too, is just continue to keep trying. I got some really awesome threads that I have highlighted here in the description. I suggest you go to YouTube, and after you click subscribe and like, you check out the links in the description to different highlights from the Olympics. I'm not going to go over them on the podcast because they're mostly pictures and videos, and I can't really do that in an audio format. But take your victory lap, check out the threads, subscribe and like on YouTube, subscribe on your listening platform, Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and continue the conversation with me. Because right now it's just one way, but hop into the comments, ask me what you want to ask me, say what you want to say. I'm always listening, and I'm always reading with you here on Bookmarks with Bump. And until next week, God bless. Peace out.
I'm a night rider. Every time that I go up past midnight, I swear I get higher. Swear I gotta get higher now. I'm a night rider. Every time that I go up past midnight, I swear I get higher. Swear I gotta get higher, man.